Hi everyone, this is Phil. Music is Phil. I've had a couple questions where people are asking me how do I actually create music, and there's a couple of things I wanted to go over real quick to show you how simple it is and how complex you can get into. So, um, essentially, it's pretty easy to do. First, you need to really have a musical instrument if that's what you want to use. I know a lot of people use computers as their instrument. Um, I'm a little bit more old school and organic when it comes to that, where I just need the instruments here. But there's many different ways you can generate music, and so the first thing in my perspective was to have a guitar. And after years of playing guitar, is kind of like I had a collection of riffs, uh, a clear understanding of how to write songs, um, but I just couldn't find the right people to jam with, or if I did find the right people, it never lasted very long. So I struggled to find my way around to really satisfy my musical needs in life and finding the right people to connect with and the right people to help me build what I need to build. So I really struggled with this for a long time, and I took some time to kind of break down what I wanted to achieve and how I can accommodate each one of these goals, and to get to a point where I'm not like rock star successful, but to a point where to appease my goals and have a product that's somewhat listenable. So I struggled with this for a while. I've always been a computer person. It is my career path, and I've always been around musical instruments, part of my family. So I used to start out doing a lot of this, a long time ago, using tools like Cakewalk, and even though I never got really good at using these tools, um, it helped me get started down the path of recording some things and understanding the value of what the recording software can do. So over the course of time, I went from Cakewalk to Ableton and used Ableton as kind of my tool to help kind of further my interest in music and whatnot. But the problem I had there was I still didn't have a lot of knowledge on engineering, and a lot of the information that was out there was a little bit limited on what I could do. So, in my most recent iteration of becoming a professional studio musician, I guess I'd be a home studio musician. Um, I've gone to a software called Reaper, which is in the background of the screen here. Now, Reaper is just like most other um, DAW, as they call DAW, digital audio workspace or something like that. That's what it's called. Most of the more important flavors of these are like Pro Tools, um, Logic, and Ableton and Cakewalk fall under that too. But I've found that Reaper was probably the best tool for me at this point in time with my skill level. And it is affordable. It's like maybe $80 one-time fee, whereas most of these applications now charge a subscription. And if you're a professional musician and making continuous songs and you're making money off of it, maybe that would suit what you want to achieve better than what Reaper would. But for me and what I'm trying to achieve, this does exactly what I want it to. So really all I needed was a guitar, and you know that's where your starting point is, and a laptop. Aside from that, you need to have an interface that connects the two together. And for me, I use a Scarlett 18i8, but you can use even smaller scale ones of a 2i2 or 4i4 or whatever. I just like to have the more outputs and inputs kind of stock and ready so that I'm not changing around cables. Usually the smaller Scarlett only has a limited amount of inputs. The bigger the Scarlett, you have more inputs that you can kind of play around with. The cables to connect, so it connects by USB into my laptop. The guitar connects into the Scarlett, and then I have Reaper using the software that automatically detects Scarlett, so I can actually start playing right into it. Aside from that, I do have speakers, so that goes out of the Scarlett, and I do have a subwoofer down below to help with the bass and low end frequencies, so I can get the full dynamic of the sound. So to get started with building a song, I would go into Reaper. And, there's many different ways to do what I do. The genesis of a song could come from any inspiration. It could come from a lyric, a melody line, a guitar riff, a drum beat, a sound, or anything like that, wherever kind of it inspires you. But for what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do something a little bit organic, where I don't really have anything in mind. I have no expectations. I'm just going to jump right into Reaper, and I'm going to start building a song. So the first thing I could do is kind of put a click track out here, and the way to do that, you just double click here, and then you insert in a click source. All right. And so just by listening to this, if you played this, all you're going to hear is clicks going through. It's really, there's not much to it. And depending on the mood that I am in, depends on how fast I want it to go. So say I want to do something slower or faster, you can just move this to, like, say you want to make this a slow song, you make it 80 beats per minute, and it's definitely a lot slower. And if you want to make it faster and say, oops, I keep clicking on metronome enabled, you can move this up to, say, 240, and obviously it's faster at that point in time. Another way to satisfy this is using the metronome. I kept clicking on it because I do vacillate between using a click source and metronome from time to time. Sometimes it's easy for me to put in the clicks in here so I can actually see the clicks and be prepared. It's just something I do on my own. So the next thing I do is I insert in another track, and I like to label these. So this one I'm going to label as click. And this one right here I'm going to label as guitar. So you can manage your guitar in many different ways. I do like to use groupings on guitars, and it helps save on CPU. So, for example, I'm going to create a track underneath this, and I'm going to add it to here. And so if I do this a couple different times, and I'm just going to duplicate here and duplicate again, what happens is, instead of putting any type of say I want to put a guitar, like a guitar effects on here, and I like to use the Mesa Boogie guitar effects here. Once it adds, you got your guitar amp. You have it on your parent channel, and therefore if you record under any one of these, you're getting that. Now if you add this guitar plugin on each level, then it takes up a lot of CPU space, and you start getting into sound related problems and things like that. So for the time being, I'm just going to leave it like this. This is like the master track, and then I'm going to have guitar 1, then I'm going to take and copy that, guitar 2, and I usually create a scratch track because I move things around, and it's good to have just kind of a basic scratch track. So at this point in time, I'm kind of trying to figure out, what do I want to make, what do I want to do, and I know it's going to be heavy because I got this guitar, the Mesa Boogie. So I'm going to grab my guitar, All right. I'm gonna arm the track. So if I play the track, turn that down a little bit. All right. You can see it's right here, but all I'm gonna do on this is I'm gonna take this, I'm gonna rotate, I'm gonna bring it out 8 beats, and I'm just gonna toggle the rotation, you know, so it's kind of repeating back and forth until I find a riff that I like. So I feel like I got something there that I like. So what I'm going to do next is I am going to record this. I'm going to do a 4-count intro, and then I'm going to start playing it. As you can see, I didn't do that to what I liked. I'm going to redo that. Pull this out a little bit further. I'm going to just leave that as is. I usually do kind of a visual walkthrough to kind of see how everything aligns. And I can see right here at the beginning, I'm a little bit off with my timing. So you can do things where you can stretch and add. As you can see, if you look here a little bit more clearly, the first don't fall essentially onto the beat until about right here. So what I do is I just split it, and then I just drag it. I'll just hit the Alt button, I'll pull it all the way up like this. Then you kind of got to look through a few of these and go, all right, is this off? This one's a little bit off. I'll split this one. As you can see that I've really got off the clock here on a few of these, so I'm gonna do what I can to kind of get this thing aligned up to the clock here, and this may take a little bit of work. And you can use things like stretch markers and things like that to help accommodate to get everything on track. But as you can see, it's rough. There's a lot of this, there's a lot of gaps here, and it's hard to, it takes time to really kind of lock everything down to where everything is 100%. But that's part of being a studio engineer, is lining things up so you can have everything perfect and whatnot. So I'll just kind of go back, and you can hear, so I'm happy with that. So I'm going to use that and save that as kind of a phase, first part riff. And then I'm going to do kind of something a little bit more interesting at this point in time. I normally, at this point in time, really kind of get like a good solid riff down and take a little bit of time. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to implement a drum track on this immediately. So the way I do that is I do a virtual track and I input in Easy Drummer 3. Now Easy Drummer 3 is going to fill in a lot of things here. It's going to get a little mad at the beginning, but it brings the software up. And here I do a couple maintenance things real quick before I get too involved with a lot of this. I'll take the guitar and I'm going to move it all the way back up to the click track. And then I'm going to take another track, I'm going to put it here, and then I'm going to turn that into the drum master. So it's like that. So the Easy Drummer is kind of being run by a master. So how I get past a lot of this, I'll just use kind of this as a click track up to here. But after that, I may add drums, or I may even take the click track out. So the way I do it there is I come in here and I loop what I'm playing. So if I come back here and say I want to, you kind of can't see it because I want to loop this entire part right here. I can loop it, and then I can insert drums in as I feel like as a groove is what I feel until I feel I've found something that works good. So if all you're hearing is the riff, but if I come over to grooves and say I want to add something that's a little bit, I could do something standard rock and straight 4. Is that a good example? Let's try this. Or I could do something that's a little bit swing on backbeat. Now if I want to do something that's just basic rock, if I want to do something that's straight metal, exactly what I wanted. There's maybe some other metal ones that I can use in here. Let's see if we can take it down. These are a little bit too much. So I think I'm going to just stick with that one. So I take this and I drag it out here and just line it up with the, I gotta get rid of this. I don't know why this thing always comes up. But I can line it directly up with my tracks. And so when I want to play this, and let's say I want to play a whole, it would probably help if I put it down on the right track. There we go. So there's a little bit of elements and things that you can play with. And say I want to do kind of an intro, like a drum pickup intro right into here. So I can come in here and I can look at, something, here's an intro fill right here. So maybe I can grab one of these and I'll just kind of, I'll just grab one of these. I'll put it right at the front. And I'm going to mute the click track. So this is what you get when you kind of have a complete So another thing that I do is I color code. So if I know that like all the guitars are going to be the same, I'll go in here, track color, and then I'll just make it one random color. And I'll do that same with the drums so I can differentiate so I'm not stepping on the other tracks or anything like that. And then, obviously set the click track to a color on its own too. And then a few things I do beyond, sometimes I double track guitars. And I do this most of the time for rhythm stuff, so it's pretty, helps broaden out the sound. And sometimes I paint them, both sides, east and west, or left and right as hard as what I can, so you get the full array of the sound spectrum. So one final thing that I do here, and I'm going to move this up here, is I also add in bass tracks. So when I come in here, I'm gonna duplicate this. Select track color. All right, and so this is gonna be like your bass master. And then I practically go through the same effort when I grab my bass. I gotta arm one of the tracks. Gotta make sure you can hear it. So I don't do a whole lot dynamically with the bass. Sometimes I do, but for the most part, when it's heavy, I just try to drive, a regular riff on top of it and make sure it lines up with the drums and the guitar. So I'm gonna just kind of. So as you can see, there's not a whole lot of flair there. I practically stuck with an E, open E the entire time. But it helps fill out the entire sound. And once I get to a point where I have something that's somewhat listenable, you know, I feel like it's a good start of a song. Then you start working on the next phase of each thing. So at this point in time, I'm just going to save it. I'm going to save this project as, and if I go to some of my songs here that I have already listed out, I go through something that I have on my phone is I have a catalog of just kind of catchphrases and words of things that interest me. Whenever somebody says something, I always have an impression that, hey, that would be a good name for a song title or something like that. And so it's kind of got to match what it is. So I'm just going to try to find something here that's simple. And I'm just going to call this one, I don't know if I have a good one here. I think I'm going to call this one Overtake. So I call this one Overtake. And make sure it creates a subdirectory for the project, moves all the media into it, and so it is there. So now we know this project is called Overtake, and if I want to come back and do anything more with it, it's already there and ready to go. That is all I have for this quick session. This is how most of my songs are built. As you can see, it's pretty simple. I don't have a lot of dynamics to it. And once I do have a song built, normally what I do is I hire somebody on Fiverr to track acoustic drums on top of it. So I know that the guitar and bass is organic, and I know the acoustic drums are organic also. So that there's nothing technical really, no digital sounds or anything like that in the mix. Once I get that back, I mix the levels and everything like that, and then I just use AI to master the tool. It's a pretty easy process, and I think that if you want to do this and you have the ability to play some sort of instrument, you're going to find it's a lot easier to do than what you expect. But there's a little bit of a learning curve. But anyways, this is how I write my songs, and I hope it helps anybody else out if they're actually trying to go down this journey also. I'm still learning, and if I record another one of these in a year from now, I'm pretty sure it will be completely different. Thank you for your time.